Other than that, we can also now look at clients, for example. Clients, and we spoke about it for a while here, is that they also have a role to play and responsibility in terms of getting the project to their required outcome or fit for purpose. Therefore, they need to also provide certain information, for example. So what we're looking at is, coming back to the criteria, it's a collaborative issue. Like the colleague was saying here. It's not a clear answer, but there are guidelines in terms of, for example, deliverables. Each partner or stakeholder has a deliverable. And that is what we are looking at in terms of the CIDB. We've tried it in the past. In terms of contractors, for example, performance reports. But then there are other parties contributing perhaps to their non-performance. So we're looking at a holistic view in terms of the three parties to the project so that we can look at monitoring that and also in terms of intervening for development purposes. In other words, we look at what are the shortcomings, like my colleague next to me is saying, we need to understand what are the requirements, for example, what are the challenges, before we can even go in terms of looking at the criteria. And I think it's a collaborative sort of approaches.
Okay. Thank you very much. Colleagues, let's take two more questions from the audience on this issue of performance. Yes, yes. Please, there's a gentleman there. Thank you so much. On the issue of performance, thank you.
Afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I think I might be off track a little bit, but I hope I'm not crying at the wrong funeral. My name is Sammy Mangana. I'm a construction management graduate from the University of Pretoria. I'm also part of a non-government organization called Construction Network South Africa, which focuses on upskilling the construction graduate.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. My question is more relating to the CIDB. Speaking to unemployed graduates, trying to address that, to find out what exactly is stopping or what are the barriers that are faced from implementing or introducing a requirement, an academic qualification requirement to register your company with CIDB from grade 1. I ask this because there's a lot of unemployment graduates amongst the construction industry. Yeah, we matriculate, we are told that the construction industry or built environment, that's where the market is, that's where the demand is, you study, and then now you're sitting at home with unemployment.
Thank you very much. There's another hand here. Let's take that other hand here, the gentleman over there. Yes. Let's take that question, then we'll respond and take the last set of questions before we conclude for the day.
Thank you very much, panel. My name is Werner Jurling. I'm a construction company CEO, but I'm also the vice president of SAICI. I have a specific interest in construction because I lived my whole life in it. I think we need to take things forward to the plenary tomorrow and report back. I'd like to just propose that we add a few items just in the report back. First of all, as far as productivity was concerned that we discussed now, in the hands of the contractors, I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we become more productive. So we need to have a discussion around things like lean construction, waste minimization, just working better. Second item, learnings from the past. We do not analyze projects from the past. Nobody has spoken a word about the rollout of Kusile, civil infrastructure. Medupi, civil infrastructure. IDT, we as the production and the construction professionals that worked on those projects, you need to listen to us. We need to learn what happened there, and we need to share those learnings with all of our colleagues, the whole construction industry, so that we can learn and go from project to project. The same is true for other big projects. The next one is the opportunities for us as a construction industry to learn from big projects. As a 30-year-old, I built the first cable stay bridge in South Africa. I never had built it before. Now I know how to do it. The Mtento Bridge is being built by Chinese, and I have to say this. What South African engineer is going to know how to build a balanced cantilever bridge? The last engineer that knew how to do that was Dr. Hilton MacDonald, who is retired and living in Australia. That opportunity does not exist for South Africans to learn there. And I feel extremely passionate about this. So please, if we can just talk about these things and provide it as input going forward. As far as procurement is concerned, value engineering, those things are extremely important for us. I know we can do 10% better for every rand spent on capital infrastructure. If that is true, how much money do we not have to serve the people of South Africa? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I want to pick out from that contribution is the dimension of knowledge management. Knowledge management is critical, irrespective of what we want to do next. I think let's take the other question before we continue. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Innocent Zulu. I've got two questions. The first question is around the cost of a construction company to exist. There's quite a lot of requirement in terms of compliancy. And if you take a grade 4, 3, or 2, they're having to spend a lot of money up front before getting the works. My question to the panel is, how can the government assist in terms of funding this? Can there be some form of a resource pool where people who can afford, for instance, to get into the industry board in terms of the cost that it costs them? Because obviously they need to have professionals who have to have things like indemnity, which is costly. So there's a lot of cost behind it. Okay. The second one, what's not addressed in this forum is the cost of bad contract. I hear we're talking about tenders. However, the biggest dispute comes when it comes to the actual rollout of the program. Once the program is up and running, there's a lot of disputes, and it all contributes to contract interpretation. And this is not discussed. So we need to also address those particular issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody? Panelists? I need 2 people. Okay. Okay, 3.
Thanks. I think I'm going to just maybe the one that Dr. Zulu's addressed with regards to the cost of running a business. And maybe he could have helped us to explore it a bit further to understand exactly what he meant. In other words, is he referring to registration costs, CIDB registration costs? And I think it would have helped to get a bit more detail on what he meant by that. Then the cost of bad contracts that we have. You asked a question earlier on, Prof, about variations, because bad contracts are also result from many situations. And let me talk about variation, and I'll answer you as well in your question. I don't think there's no transparency in variation order management, because the contracts that we sign, they tell us what the change management processes ought to be. They are very clear. And whether you look at FIDIC, NEC, or even the bespoke contracts that we enter into, they're very clear what processes or what the change management process ought to be. But I think in the context of the South African construction industry, because of abuse of variations, layers of other scrutiny in terms of what this variation is have been added to those processes. In other words, a contractor could be performing and they have a genuine issue that has resulted on site. But because in different organs of state, there's a narrative that these processes are abused for unscrupulous reasons, then these layers that are put on top of these contracts that need to be facilitating productive change management immediately cease to exist. What then happens to the poor contractor on site? He waits for a committee to make a decision 12 months from when the issue is. By that time the decision is made, that poor contractor is closing his business. And these are some of the impacts. So it's very complex, Doctor, to give you a reason why projects, why we end up with bad contracts. I think it's a convolution of issues. And I think change management and the layers we've put on it no longer give the agility the contracts ought to give us. And then the decisions get made late. By the time the decision is made, the contractor is no longer on site, they've abandoned the site, the project is stopped, we have a bad contract. So I think for me, the contracts are very transparent in what must be done to manage change. but I think we've abused it. I think we've seen it across the industry.
Thank
I
you.
hope it helps. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Let's take Mr. Kasim, then we'll come back to Mr. Chris. Mr. Kasim,
Thank you,
quickly.
Chair. I didn't hear